My name is Iris, and I've always preferred working behind the scenes. While others fought for credit and attention, I built systems that actually worked. My husband Donovan used to joke that I had a boring superpower, making complicated things simple. He'd laugh when I explained financial structures or security protocols. "That's why I married you," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "You handle all the tedious stuff I hate." I never corrected him. People reveal more when they think you're just handling paperwork. The truth was simpler. I wasn't his assistant. I was his foundation. But foundations don't get applause, and I was fine with that. Quiet control meant I saw everything clearly while others only saw what they wanted to see. Our marriage looked perfect from outside. Donovan owned a successful consulting firm, drove a luxury car, wore expensive suits. Everyone called him brilliant. At dinner parties, clients would praise his vision, his leadership, his innovation. He'd smile that confident smile and accept every compliment. I'd stand beside him nodding politely, holding my wine. What they didn't know was that I'd restructured his entire business model 3 years ago. I'd designed the client retention system. I'd built the financial safeguards that protected him during market crashes. But when people asked what I did, Donovan would answer for me. "She helps with the administrative side." I'd learned to let him have that narrative. It kept things peaceful. Being underestimated became my advantage early on. In college, professors would glance past me during group presentations, focusing on louder classmates. In my first job, managers assumed I was just organized, not strategic. I discovered something powerful. When people dismiss you, they stop guarding their weaknesses. They speak freely. They make assumptions. They reveal exactly where the vulnerabilities are. So I stayed quiet, took notes, asked simple questions. Donovan never realized that every boring task I handled was actually me building systems he couldn't function without. I became essential while appearing optional. That's the difference between power and performance. Performance is loud, power is infrastructure. The details I managed weren't glamorous, but they were critical. Donovan's business accounts required dual authorization for transactions above certain amounts. My signature and his investment portfolios needed quarterly compliance reviews that only I understood how to file. His tax structures designed to maximize deductions while staying legal were labyrinths I'd created and maintained. Even his personal credit lines had conditional access agreements. I'd set everything up years ago when we merged our finances. For security, I'd said, in case something happens to one of us. He'd signed everything without reading, trusting me completely. Why wouldn't he? I was just handling the tedious administrative work. He had more important things to focus on, like being brilliant in meetings. Donovan asked for divorce on a Tuesday evening. We were sitting in our living room, the same place where we'd planned our wedding 8 years earlier. He looked uncomfortable but determined, like he'd rehearsed this moment. "I think we've grown apart," he said carefully. "This isn't working anymore." He waited for tears, arguments, emotional breakdowns. I knew he expected me to fight for us, to beg him to reconsider. Instead, I set down my book and looked at him calmly. "If that's what you want, then okay." His face showed confusion, then relief, then something else I couldn't quite read. "Really? Just like that?" I nodded. "Just like that." His shoulders relaxed. He actually smiled a little. He'd expected war. I gave him peace. That was his first miscalculation. The other woman's name was Vanessa. She was younger, louder, more exciting. I'd known about her for 2 months. Suspicious credit card charges, late meetings that didn't match his calendar, cologne that wasn't his usual brand. I could have confronted him then, caused a scene, demanded explanations. Instead, I'd simply updated my personal financial records and consulted a lawyer quietly. When Donovan finally introduced us at a company event, she touched his arm possessively, marking territory. "You must be the ex-wife," she said, though we weren't divorced yet. Her smile was victorious. I shook her hand warmly. "Nice to meet you." Donovan looked almost disappointed that I wasn't falling apart. People around us whispered, waiting for drama. I gave them nothing but polite conversation. Vanessa seemed confused by my calm. Good, let her wonder. The settlement negotiations were surprisingly simple. Donovan wanted the house, the business, the investments, basically everything with his name prominently attached. His lawyer presented it as generous. I'd get a modest payout, keep my car, walk away cleanly. "She's being very reasonable," Donovan told his lawyer proudly, like I was finally showing appropriate gratitude for his mercy. I read every page carefully, then signed. His lawyer looked surprised. "You're not contesting anything?" I smiled. "Why would I? Donovan built this life. He should keep it." That sentence made him relax completely. His ego heard what he wanted, confirmation that everything was his creation, his success, his empire. What he didn't hear was what I didn't say, that empires need foundations and foundations can be removed. I left that meeting with less visible wealth but more actual control than he realized. He'd won the performance. I'd kept the power. The moment I stopped protecting Donovan wasn't dramatic. There was no big decision, no vengeful planning session, no moment where I plotted his downfall. I simply stopped doing all the invisible work I'd been doing for years. I didn't file the quarterly compliance reports. I didn't renew the security protocols. I didn't process the authorization updates that kept his access seamless. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was just no longer maintaining systems he didn't know needed maintenance. It's like watering a garden. When you stop, nothing dramatic happens immediately. The plants don't die on day one, but slowly, inevitably, things begin to wither. Donovan had no idea how much invisible labor kept his world running smoothly. He was about to learn. Not because I attacked him, but because I simply stepped back and let reality teach him what I'd been preventing him from experiencing. For 2 days after signing the divorce papers, I heard nothing. Donovan had moved in with Vanessa. His social media showed them at expensive restaurants, looking happy and free. Friends texted me carefully, asking if I was okay. "I'm fine," I replied honestly. I wasn't heartbroken, more like relieved. Our marriage had ended long before the divorce papers. Those 2 days were quiet. I organized my new apartment, a small place downtown that cost less than our weekly grocery budget used to. I read books, took long walks, slept better than I had in months. Meanwhile, Donovan was living his new life, probably feeling triumphant. He'd escaped his boring marriage, kept his empire, started fresh with someone exciting. What could possibly go wrong? I didn't have to wonder. I knew exactly what was coming. Not because I'd planned it, but because I understood how his world actually worked and I wasn't holding it together anymore. Donovan's first problem started small. He tried to transfer funds for a new investment opportunity, something time-sensitive that required immediate action. The transfer was declined, according to his assistant's panicked message to me, which I didn't respond to. The bank said there was a processing delay. Nothing major, just unusual. Donovan probably dismissed it as a technical glitch. He'd retry tomorrow, but the next day, same problem, and the day after that. His business partner called confused. "We're losing the deal because we can't move the money fast enough." Donovan called the bank directly. They were polite but firm. The account required secondary authorization for transactions over $50,000. He'd need to update the signing privileges. I own this account, Donovan insisted. Just process it. The bank representative paused. Actually, sir, you're listed as primary but not sole owner. The account structure requires dual confirmation. Donovan's voice must have risen. From who? When the bank finally sent Donovan the account documentation, he called me 17 times in 1 hour. I was at a coffee shop, reading peacefully, watching my phone buzz and buzz and buzz. I let every call go to voicemail. On the 18th call I answered. Hello, Donovan. His voice was strained, carefully controlled. We need to talk about the accounts. I sipped my coffee. What about them? He exhaled slowly, clearly fighting to stay calm. The bank says you're listed as co-owner, that you need to authorize certain transactions. I paused, letting him hear the confusion in my voice. Well, yes, we set that up years ago. For security purposes, remember. Another pause. I need you to remove yourself from the accounts. Sign over full control. I considered this. I'll think about it. His control slipped slightly. This isn't a negotiation. These are my accounts. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Actually, Donovan, there are accounts. You signed the papers yourself. The full reality hit Donovan when his lawyer explained the legal structure. The accounts weren't just jointly owned. They were specifically designed with conditional access. Donovan could handle day-to-day operations freely, but anything substantial, anything that involved major financial moves or structural changes, required my authorization, and those authorization agreements weren't simple forms. They were embedded in the original account architecture, protected by banking regulations and contract law. His lawyer, a different one than handled the divorce, explained it bluntly. You'd need her signature to remove her signature. It's a legal catch-22. Donovan had apparently gone silent on the call. Then, how did this happen? His lawyer reviewed the documents. You signed everything 8 years ago. Standard asset protection strategy for married couples. Except usually both parties understand what they're signing. Donovan must have realized then, all those papers I'd asked him to sign, all those boring administrative tasks, had been me building a cage he couldn't see because he never looked closely. Donovan showed up at my apartment that evening. I watched through the window as he sat in his car for 10 minutes, probably rehearsing what to say. When he finally knocked, I opened the door calmly. He looked exhausted, his usual confidence cracked around the edges. Can we talk? I stepped aside, let him in. My apartment was small, nothing like our old house, but it was mine. He looked around, seeming surprised by how content I appeared. I'm not here to fight, he said quietly. I nodded. I know. He sat down heavily. I need access to my accounts. I poured 2 glasses of water, handed him one. They're not just your accounts, Donovan. They never were. His jaw tightened. I built that business. That money is mine. I smiled sadly. The money is yours. The structure protecting it is ours. There's a difference. He stared at me like he was seeing someone new. Why did you do this? Vanessa became a problem faster than I expected. According to mutual friends, she'd started questioning Donovan's actual financial situation. The luxury lifestyle he'd promised was hitting roadblocks. Restaurants were fine, but when she mentioned looking at houses together, Donovan made excuses. When she wanted to invest in her own business idea, he hesitated. She'd started asking pointed questions. If you're so successful, why can't you access your own money? Donovan apparently had no good answers that didn't make him look incompetent or trapped. The pressure was building from multiple directions now. Business deals were stalling because he couldn't move money quickly. His personal credibility was suffering because he'd promised clients quick decisions he couldn't deliver. And his new relationship was straining because Vanessa had expected to upgrade her life, not watch her boyfriend struggle with basic financial access. I heard all this through careful listening, through friends who didn't realize they were telling me exactly how badly Donovan's new world was cracking. Donovan's lawyer finally called me directly. Her name was Patricia and she was professional but clearly frustrated. My client is experiencing significant financial disruption due to the account structures you established. I listened quietly. He's willing to offer a substantial settlement for your cooperation in transferring full control. I asked how much. She named a figure that made my eyebrows raise. It was more than the original divorce settlement by a factor of 10. That's generous, I said honestly, but I'll need time to consider. Patricia's voice hardened slightly. Ms. Hayes, let me be direct. If you're attempting to extort my client. I interrupted gently, I'm not extorting anyone. Donovan had full access to these accounts throughout our marriage. He still has access for normal operations. What changed isn't my behavior, it's his situation. Silence on the line. Then, what exactly are you asking for? I smiled. I haven't asked for anything. Donovan's the one making requests. We met at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant neither of us had been to before. Donovan arrived early, sitting in the corner booth, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. When I sat down, he didn't waste time on pleasantries. Tell me what you want. I ordered tea first, took my time. I don't want anything, Donovan. His frustration showed. Everyone wants something. Money, revenge, to see me fail. I shook my head. I want you to understand something. When we got married, I didn't build those systems to trap you. I built them to protect us. Both of us. He started to interrupt, but I raised a hand. Every structure I created, every safeguard I put in place, was because I loved you and wanted our future secure. You never asked how it worked because you trusted me. You trusted me to handle the complicated, boring parts while you handled the exciting, visible parts. His expression shifted slightly. So what changed? I met his eyes directly. You divorced the person protecting you. That changed everything. Donovan leaned forward, voice dropping. I made a mistake. Leaving you was stupid. Can we fix this? I'd expected this. Not because he loved me, but because he needed me. No, Donovan, we can't go back. His face tightened. Then what? You're just going to hold my business hostage forever? I sipped my tea slowly. I'm not holding anything hostage. Here's what you don't understand. I could destroy you completely right now. I could freeze every account, trigger compliance reviews, expose every structural weakness in your business architecture. I could make sure you spent the next 5 years untangling legal knots. His face went pale. But you're not going to. It wasn't a question. I smiled slightly. No, I'm not, because unlike you, Donovan, I don't need to destroy people to feel powerful. I'm going to do something you never expected. I'm going to let you go. Confusion crossed his face. What does that mean? I pulled out papers I'd prepared, not with malice but with precision. These documents transfer full control of all joint accounts to you. Completely. No conditions, no catches, no revenge clauses. Donovan stared at them suspiciously. Why? I signed my name on each page in front of him. Because holding onto you means staying connected to you. I don't want that anymore. His lawyer would verify everything later, but the shock on his face was genuine. You're just giving it all back. I nodded. With modifications, you'll have full access, but you'll also have full responsibility. All the compliance work, all the structural maintenance, all the invisible labor I was doing, that's yours now. The systems I built will stay in place for 90 days. After that, you'll need to rebuild them yourself or hire someone who understands what I was actually doing all these years. His hand shook slightly as he took the pen. I don't understand. I stood up to leave. I know, that's the problem you'll need to solve. 30 days later, Donovan's business hit its first major compliance issue. A quarterly report I used to file automatically went missed. The penalties were substantial but not catastrophic, just enough to hurt. Vanessa apparently left him around the same time. According to friends, she'd grown tired of the constant stress and Donovan's newfound obsession with administrative details he'd always ignored before. He'd hired a financial manager to replace the work I'd done, but it took that person 3 months to even understand the systems I'd built. Donovan called me once more, 6 weeks after our last meeting. Not angry this time, just tired. I never realized how much you did. I didn't gloat. I know. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry for everything. I believed him, not because he'd changed fundamentally, but because he'd finally seen what he'd been too blind to notice before. Thank you for saying that. We hung up. I never heard from him again. I rebuilt my life slowly and deliberately. The settlement money Donovan had offered before I signed everything over, I'd accepted a smaller, cleaner amount that let me start fresh without strings attached. I took a job at a firm that valued strategic thinking, where my boss actually asked my opinion and listened to the answers. I dated carefully, taking time to know someone before letting them close. I learned to advocate for myself loudly when needed, not just work quietly in shadows. But I never lost the lesson that made me who I was. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need validation or applause. It exists in understanding systems others ignore, in building foundations others take for granted, in knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Donovan taught me something valuable even if he didn't mean to. Being underestimated is only a weakness if you believe it yourself. For me, it had always been freedom.